to order of the Arizona State Parks Board at 10:02 on Thursday, what is today? June 16th, 2022. And with that, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kelly, would you please conduct the member roll call?
Dale Larson.
Here.
John Sefton.
Here.
Lisa Atkins.
Here.
Debbie Johnson.
Here.
Sarah King. Terry Palmer.
Here.
Mr. Vice Chair, we have a quorum.
We have a quorum. And before we get into the agenda items, I'd like to read the mission statement of the Arizona State Parks Board. As board members, we are gathered today to be the stewards and voice of the Arizona State Parks and its mission statement to manage and to conserve Arizona's natural, cultural, and recreational resources for the benefit of the people, both in our parks and through our partners. With that, we'll move to agenda item number D. First, D1, consideration of action to approve the minutes of the May 19, 2022 board meeting. Has everyone had an opportunity to review those minutes? And are there any questions? And do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman. I move to approve the minutes of the May 19, 2022 board meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those that approve say so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you. Item D2, discussion and consideration of action to approve, modify, or deny funding for the submitted 2022 motorized grant applications. Hey, we have presenter Matt Eberhardt, Off-Highway Vehicle Coordinator. Matt.
Set up here. A little intimidating with two rows of people. Big crowd. So, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board, I'm Matt Eberhardt, the State Off-Highway Vehicle Coordinator for Arizona State Parks and Trails. Today we have 4 applications that have been submitted for the Off-Highway Vehicle Recreation Fund program. Currently the fund has $2.8 million available in it.
It's right behind you on the.
Got the power. So we have 4 projects up for review. I'll go ahead and just present on each and answer any questions related to them, and then I don't think there's a need to call out any individual projects unless the board needs to. And then there can be one motion related to the projects. So the total funding request for today is $747,611. The first project up for review, where am I clicking? Where am I pointing?
Oh, is it not? Okay. I'll do it.
That's okay.
Sorry about that.
The first project up for review is the Arizona State Association of Four-Wheel Drive Clubs, requesting $89,891. This project scored 44 points out of 100. This project will be a continuation of 2 previous grants that they've been awarded. Project expenses will include the development of education programs and informational materials related to off-highway vehicle recreation, attending outreach events, participating in the Adopt a Road program, and continuing their partnerships with working groups, including the BLM and Forest Service, various volunteer events, and the Four-Wheel Drive Club will be providing $11,414 in match funding. OFAG staff and AORC recommended this project for full funding. OFAG and AORC had no questions regarding this project, and I believe the Arizona State Association of Four-Wheel Drive Club President Rebecca Antle may be on the phone, but I'd be happy to answer any questions related to this project specifically.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions from the board? Okay. Next item.
Hearing none. The next grant request is from the Tonto Recreation Alliance. They are requesting $309,026. This project scored 24 points out of 100 and will also be a continuation of 2 previous grant applications. The project costs will include monitoring the Tonto National Forest 3,000 miles of roads and trails, excuse me, trail maintenance, trail monitoring, education and outreach programs, the purchase of a side-by-side to increase their accessibility and footprint within the forest, various volunteer events, fence repairs, kiosk installation, as well as several social media marketing campaigns to improve off-highway vehicle education and information sharing. The Tonto Recreation Alliance will be providing $19,468 in project match. OFAG and AORC had no questions regarding this project. The project was recommended for full funding by staff, OFAG, and AORC, and I believe Trail President Richard Smith is on the phone, and I'd be happy to answer any questions related to this project.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, can I just ask, I just want to clarify, Matt, I think you said 309, but it says 308 on our form in terms of dollars. Is it 308,000 or 9,000?
Let's see. What's going on with that? I believe it was 30826. I
Okay.
apologize.
Perfect, thank you.
Great. No further questions? Go ahead, Matt. Next item.
Thank you. The third application that is up for review is La Paz County, requesting $299,694. Their project scored 21 out of 100, and the project costs will cover the completion of a revised master plan for the Baus County Park. Future improvements to the park will include an off-highway vehicle staging area, restroom shower building, improved OHV and RV campsites. The master plan completion will include J2 engineering costs, environmental and cultural planning and design, aqua, electrical, structural, and geotechnical engineering and design. La Paz County will be providing $2,747 in project match. OFAG had asked if this project was related to the former Baus staging area that was a proposed park. It is not tied to that project. This is a La Paz County managed property. It's a pre-existing county park that they're looking to do the master plan for these upgrades. The project was recommended for full funding by staff, OFAG, and AORC, and Kurt Bagby with La Paz County is on the phone, and we'd be happy to answer any questions related to this project.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions from the board? All right. Now, also,
I-
Matt, you mentioned, I'm sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
go ahead, John.
Commissioner Atkins.
What has been what is the current use of the county parks on this particular site now?
Currently, I did a site visit. The park has RV campsites, a ball field, basketball hoops, playground, that type of stuff. So they're looking at doing some improvements to the area for accommodating the off-highway vehicle community that's in the area. So they'll be adding a staging area and improved and additional RV parking and camping.
Thanks, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned also that with that other park that was under consideration, it was about a mile and a half?
Yeah, that's
from that
correct,
site.
Mr. Vice Chair. The proposed Baus Park at the time from several years ago is about a mile or so away from this area, but that's been sold and in use by another organization now. So,
Very good. Thank you.
mhm.
Okay, next item.
The last grant request for review is our agency, Arizona State Parks and Trails, is requesting $50,000 for facilitation services related to off-highway vehicle recreation in the greater Sedona area. The project will be matched by $2,499 from the Red Rock Ranger District, as well as $25,000 from the City of Sedona. Facilitation services will run through the next fiscal year, 2023, starting July 1st, running until June 30th of 2023, including a variety of outreach events, stakeholder meetings between the Coconino National Forest, Arizona State Parks and Trails, the Arizona Game and Fish Department, the Land Department, Sedona residents, rental companies in the area, and other stakeholders impacted by off-highway vehicle recreation in the Sedona area. OFAG had no questions regarding this project, and at AORC, Member Sefton had requested that we confirm that the State Land Department was aware of this project and the need to to be involved in the stakeholder group At which point, I have spoken with Simone Hall, who's the Director of Natural Resources Division with the Land Department, as Jackie Thomas and Jeff Baker had been identified by the facilitation organization as representatives for the State Land Department. So we just confirmed that this week, that they are aware that they have been listed as points of contact for the Land Department to be engaged in these stakeholder meetings as they come to fruition over the next year. The project was recommended by staff, OFAG, and AORC for full funding, and I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding this project.
Any questions?
I do have a question.
Okay.
Simone confirmed that those are 2 points of contact? The U.S. Forest Service had reached out, and it came across as if we were requesting a letter of support from the Land Oh,
Department
no, I
for
saw
this
that.
project.
That's why I'm asking.
And so what I had just reached out to Simone and to the Forest Service was to confirm that Jeff and Jackie were aware of the fact that they had been identified
Okay.
as points of contact, or if there are points of contact that you, Commissioner, feel would be best suited to be
Simone.
engaged. Okay.
Simone.
Okay, wonderful. And that's, again, we can
And
work.
Matt, quite honestly, the reason I ask that is because there's also, I'm sure we're going to hear about the activity of the legislature with regard to off-road vehicles. And I want to make sure that the Land Department is approaching this in a coherent manner. And having the field staff involved, they undoubtedly will be involved. But we've been involved at headquarters at the Land Department on all these discussions since the very first indication that we were having trouble with our grazing lessees as well. So I'd like to compact that, and for the record, have just Simone as the point of contact at this point.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
That can certainly be the case.
Thanks, Matt, I appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
And Mr. Chair, if I could, Matt, is someone from the Sedona Chamber and Tourism Bureau also involved in this working group?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
It's an extensive list. I just know that Member Sefton had asked specifically related to the Land Department because we know that there have been some instances where their staff haven't been contacted, and we wanted to make sure that that was not the case in this instance. But yes, there is an extensive list of stakeholders, and I'd be happy to share that with the board if need be.
Great. Thank you. Any further discussion on those 4 items? Matt, great presentation.
Mr. Vice Chair, this is Dale. Just to segue, this is so badly needed. I certainly will have a full respect for whoever is going to facilitate this conversation with the various stakeholders. As I know Commissioner Atkins knows, and others I know Director Broshide knows, there has been quite a amount of complaints and inquiries coming from Sedona, also in Payson, but particularly this case was Sedona, in terms of environmental concerns, dust, people going off trail, all of the above. So, I mean, this has got a huge outcome opportunity for these groups to be able to work together. And as a board member, I think we need to be very diligent to be able to stay in touch with what is happening from the citizenry up in Sedona. As Board Member Johnson just mentioned, this hugely affects tourism trade in that area. So whatever comes out of this will presumably be a much better, more positive working relationship between the various stakeholder groups in this. So I wish the facilitator or facilitators good luck, but this is going to be a huge undertaking.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Member Larson, to speak to that too, we are also partnering with the Office of Tourism for their conference this summer to host a panel regarding off-highway vehicle recreation. So that will have representatives from the 3 managing agencies, as well as U.S. Forest Service and BLM. So we're looking forward to kind of changing the tide or the view of the off-highway vehicle community and trying to get ahead of it. And obviously with legislation passing for that committee, we'll probably be in conversations with Director Broshide as to who's representing our agency for that committee. But there is change for the off-highway vehicle recreation coming, and I'm looking forward to being part of it. So thank you.
I'll also comment on your picture. Hopefully we can avoid more of those, right?
Yes.
Good planning and good communication,
Yep.
good education. So with that, members of the board, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that the Arizona State Parks Board approve funding for the submitted 2022 motorized grant applications as follows. Arizona State Association of Four-Wheel Drive Clubs, $89,891. The Tonto Recreation Alliance, $308,026. La Paz County, Baus County Master Plan, $299,694. And the Arizona State Parks and Trails for the Greater Sedona OHV Management, $50,000.
Thank you very much, Member Johnson. Do we have a second?
Second.
And we have a second, and a motion and a second by roll call vote, please.
Dale Larson,
Aye.
Lisa Atkins,
Aye.
Debbie Johnson, excuse me.
Aye.
Terry Palmer.
Aye.
And I as well.
Yes, my apologies, I skipped over, excuse me. Vice Chair Sufton.
Thank you, members.
The motion passed.
And the motion passes.
And Matt, thank you very much for what you've done to help get this
Absolutely.
session together for the conference. We're excited to have it.
Thank you.
Great. So item D3, we have the discussion and consideration of action to approve, modify, or deny funding the submitted 2022 Heritage Fund Environmental Education Grant applications. Presenter Mickey Rogers, Chief of Grants and Trails. Mickey.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, member of the board. I'm Mickey Rogers. I'm the Chief of Grants and Trails for Arizona State Parks. For the Heritage Fund Environmental Education Program, this provides matching funds to develop and promote outdoor and environmental protection programs related to outdoor recreation. A total of $500,000 was appropriated for the environmental education program, and 20% of these funds can be used for a project or up to $100,000. So there are 3 projects that were submitted. The first project, Tread Lightly, will be looking for funding for a program manager for its program in Arizona. The goal of the Tread Lightly State Program is to enhance the experience of recreational users by expanding their knowledge of how their recreation type impacts the natural and cultural resources, how to minimize those impacts, and provide recreationists a way to give back to places by participating in stewardship projects. The program's success and growth has put significant strain on the current staff. The program manager will provide adequate attention to the critical need to provide outdoor ethics education, outreach and stewardship opportunities to be used in TREAD training courses, for awareness and overview, online ethic courses for youth and adults, and provide educational materials for OHV runners. The stewardship program will work with volunteers to address some of the issues caused by OHV users, including minor mitigation, putting up kiosks and signage, and trail maintenance. Tread Lightly will be providing $11,000 in match, and staff and AERC recommend to fully fund this project, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Excellent. Board members, any questions on this item?
Mr. Vice Chair, Dale, Mickey, just a quick question on the Tread Lightly exclamation point post. Are they a nonprofit organization?
Mr. Chair, yes, they are. They are a nonprofit.
Thank you.
Any other conversation? Okay, Mickey, next item.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. The City of Peoria is seeking funding for a Leave No Trace stewardship program. The grant will cover the cost to roll out the Leave No Trace program for trail stewards, park rangers, and the public. The goal is to train 80 people at 4 3-hour sessions. The recreation areas in Peoria include 19 miles of multi-use river trails and 23 miles of trails spread out over 5 mountain preserves. The impact of trash and poor outdoor etiquette has a tremendous impact on these areas. The hope is the training will provide awareness to the recreating public and make these areas much more appealing. From their cleanup fact sheet, volunteers and staff have picked up 27,514 pounds of trash, of which 53% was plastic, and 1,005 aluminum cans, totaling 1,722 volunteer hours. The project has strong support from neighborhoods, schools, businesses, and volunteers of all ages. Staff and AERC recommend to fully fund this project, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Excellent. Any questions? I do want to make sure for the record, it's very clear that I am a former employee of the City of Peoria, though have no official connections to this project at all.
Well, you can volunteer, John. I mean,
I can volunteer, yes. I'm very, very proud of Della and the work that she's been doing, for sure. But by ethics, by nature of ethics, and so
just a quick question, Mickey. What does $6,000 buy?
Training.
The training materials for the Leave No Trace program and for the instructors.
Oh, okay, thank you.
excellent. Next item. Thank you,
The
Mickey.
final proposed project is the Sedona Red Rock Trail Fund. The Sedona Red Rock Trail Fund works in partnership with Red Rock Ranger District of the Coconina National Forest and the community to educate and inform the public regarding trail use and management and help raise funds to maintain and enhance the heavily used non-motorized trails near Sedona and Oak Creek, which typically get over 3 million visitors a year. The program is currently run by volunteers, and the grant is looking for funds for a staff person for 18 months that will run their operations while educating and informing the public on the importance of trail maintenance and safe, responsible trail use. This staff would be collaborating with the Forest Service, local businesses, the City of Sedona, the counties, as well as other nonprofits. They would create and distribute promotional materials for safe and responsible trail use and manage a website. The project has over $11,000 in cash match, and staff and AERC is recommended to fully fund, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mickey. Any questions from the board? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move that the Arizona State Parks Board approve funding for the submitted 2022 Heritage Fund Environmental Education Grant applications as follows. Tread Lightly Program Manager, $100,000. City of Peoria Leave No Trace Training, $6,118. And the Sedona Red Rock Trail Fund for a Program Coordinator, $99,400.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second by roll call vote.
Vice Chair Sefton,
Aye.
Dale Larson,
Aye.
Lisa Atkins,
Aye.
Debbie Johnson,
Aye.
Terry Palmberg.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Chairman, the motion
Motion
passes.
passes. Great, thank you. And I did fail to recognize the people that were on the phone. I know Kevin was here. I didn't catch if the others were, but again, those of you that have stepped in to join with us here that have represented these grant applications, thank you very much. With that, we'll move to item number 4, discussion and consideration of action to approve, modify, or deny funding for the submitted 2022 Local, Regional, and State Parks, LRSP, American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, and those grant applications. Presenter Mickey Rogers, Chief of Grants. Mickey, again.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board. The American Rescue Plan Act funding provides funding to assist facilities that were impacted during COVID. Statistically, the use of outdoor recreation nationwide increased over 20% during the peak of COVID. Outdoor facilities, including local parks and trails, provide safe, socially distanced spaces for families and children to go to during this pandemic. They also provided essential benefits to the mental and physical health, which is specifically defined in the Rescue Act guidelines. The focus of these funds is that these facilities is for sewer and water upgrades, broadband, and facilities within neighborhoods in areas that have been identified as underserved communities. These funds are available loosely in the same categories as the Heritage Fund. So for the local, regional, state park program, we had one project that was submitted. The city of Nogales is requesting funds to provide environmentally friendly lighting fixtures to one of its city's most popular soccer fields. Soccer is the major outdoor sport in Nogales, and the Sky Hohokam Field has no lighting, making it unusable after dark, and the park is located within a qualified census tract. Currently, there's only one other soccer field in Nogales with lighting. This funding will ensure the field is well lit and provide additional safe outdoor recreation activities for the Nogales communities, providing for better physical and mental health, and it is especially important during the summer months when it's just too hot to play soccer during the day. The need for safe outdoor recreation spaces has grown in Nogales since the pandemic, and this project will provide for social distances and outdoor recreation. The project would put up 12 new light posts and 48 solar-powered dispersed LED lamps. The project was approved by the Governor's Office for eligibility, and staff and AERC recommend to fully fund it. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mickey. Any questions from the board members? Mick, one of the things that kind of stood out to me on this was that there's a clear delineation between sports field lighting and what the project is proposing as far as lighting the area. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And with that, no further discussion. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that the Arizona State Parks Board approve funding for the submitted 2022 ARPA LRSP grant applications as follows. City of Nogales Sky Hohokam Park lighting in the amount of $20,037.
Thank you, Member Johnson. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion,
It's a
second?
Tag team today.
Excellent. Roll call vote, please.
John Sefton,
Yes.
Dale Larson,
Yes.
Lisa Atkins,
Yes.
Debbie Johnson,
Yes.
Terry Palmer.
Yes.
Mr. Vice Chair, the motion passed.
Thank you very much. All right, item number 5, discussion and consideration of action to approve, modify, or deny funding for the submitted 2022 ARPA Heritage Fund Historic Preservation Grant applications. Presenter Mickey Rogers, Chief of Grants and Trails.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board. On the historic preservation rescue funding, the town of Superior is seeking funding for an HVAC system for historic Superior High School. The building will be repurposed and made into a multi-generation center. And this is part of a $5 million project for other improvements to the building. The building is not currently open to the public. This new system will provide a constant flow of outside air to prevent recirculation of air and the spread of COVID. This would be the center for the community activity, providing services for all ages while adding the capability to support local business development while preserving the building as a cultural resource. The rescue funding, HVAC funding, requires that a building be on the National State Register of Historic Places, which is the reason that we're bringing this on the historic preservation grant side. This project has been determined to be eligible for the register and therefore is eligible for historic preservation funding. SHPO will work with a sponsor with this nomination. The project is within a qualified census tract, has been approved for eligibility by the governor's office, and fully funded, recommended fully funded by staff and AORC. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mickey. What looks like a very nice project. Any comments, questions from the board?
Mickey, can I just ask one question? Do we have to make the motion based on if it is approved for historic designation?
That's one of the requirements. It will be,
It would have to be, got it.
yeah,
Thank
if
you.
it isn't, then they would have to return the funds.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, hearing no further questions, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that the Arizona State Parks Board approve funding for the submitted 2022 ARPA Historic Preservation Grant application as follows. Town of Superior Multi-Generational Center Project in the amount of $191,783.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
John Sefton,
Aye.
Dale Larson,
Aye.
Lisa Atkins,
Aye.
Debbie Johnson.
Aye.
Terry Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Chair, the motion passed.
Thank you very much. We will move on to item number 6. This is a discussion and consideration of action to approve, modify, or deny funding for the submitted 2022 Non-Motorized Trails Grant, Trails American Rescue Plan Act grant applications. Presenter Mickey Rogers.
Thank you,
Still
Mr.
Mickey Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board. On the non-motorized portion of the rescue funding, the City of Kingman proposes to construct 0.8 of a mile of new trail. This trail will connect Kingman's uptown area with the downtown. The city proposes to construct natural surface trails to accommodate non-motorized users, including hikers, mountain bikers, and equestrians. The proposed trail alignment will create a connector trail to 2 previously funded recreational trail projects known as the White Cliff Trails. This project includes 9 loops and just over an additional 6.2 miles of trail. The new trail will gain elevation to a mesa and provide dramatic views of the downtown, the Wallapai Mountains, and the historic Mojave County Courthouse. The estimated cost to construct the trail is $90,000. Because of the steep nature of the cross slope, the trail edge and message board signs with current mapping of each trail from downtown to uptown Kingman. The proposed trail is within a qualified census tract as approved by the governor for eligibility, and staff and AR recommend to fully fund, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mickey. We also have Mike Mearsman, Director of Parks and Rec, on the line. Thank you for joining us, Mike. Any questions from the board? Very good. And a motion, please.
Mr. Vice Chair, I move that the Arizona State Parks Board approve funding for the 2022 American Rescue Plan Act Non-Motorized Trails Grant Application as follows. City of Kingman White Cliffs Connector, $99,000.
And do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
John Sufton,
Aye.
Dale Larson,
Aye.
Lisa Atkins,
Aye.
Debbie Johnson,
Aye.
Terry Palmberg.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Chair, the motion passes.
Very good. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 7, presentation on National Forest Foundation. Presenter Rebecca Davidson from the Southwest Region Director of the National Forest Foundation. Rebecca, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here today. You guys are probably recalling that at our last meeting, there was a request for a little bit of information presented about who the National Forest Foundation is. So I'm happy to do that today, and I just need to work with the,
It's not connected.
oh, okay.
Just let me know.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. I knew I probably
I'm not
needed
sure how to
help
do
with
it.
the
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah, so my
okay.
apologies, Ms. Davidson.
No worries, go ahead. So the National Forest Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, congressionally chartered by Congress to be the official nonprofit partner to the U.S. Forest Service. We have a very simple mission. It's to connect Americans to the enhancement and restoration of our national forests and grasslands. And we do that in a lot of different ways. I'll go through that relatively quickly. I just wanted to point out that we know that the Forest Service has many, many partners. We are the official partner dedicated solely to the work on national forests and grasslands. So we have a special relationship. Next slide. So how we work, we are governed by a board of directors, and because of our congressional designation, we also share leadership through the National Forest Leadership Council, which is made up of Washington level and regional leaders in the U.S. Forest Service. So they, in addition to our board of directors, helps guide decision-making related to policy and priorities, also based on what we're hearing from the U.S. Forest Service. Next slide. So how we are funded. Again, we are a nonprofit organization. A majority of the funding that we raise comes from non-federal sources, through corporations, through state government, through various grants and foundations. And we also receive some federal appropriation from the U.S. Forest Service. I'll talk about how we use that, as well as some directed Forest Service funding for specific projects and programs. Next slide. So I just wanted to show sort of the general sense of what we're doing across the U.S. because we do work across the U.S. I'm the director of the Southwest region. So I work in Arizona and New Mexico to invest funds and to implement these kinds of projects. So this gives you a sense of the scope and scale of the work we're doing across the United States. Next slide. So we also work under some large-scale national strategies that directs what we do in the field. Next slide. The first of the themes that we work under is to enhance outdoor experiences. And so the project that I've been submitting here and working with Mickey on is under this priority strategy that the National Forest Foundation has. So it could be trail infrastructure, kiosks, campgrounds, parking lots, even bathrooms. And so we work with the Forest Service and local communities to identify key priority projects where we need to invest resources and build some capacity. Next slide. The other theme that we work under is to improve forest health. So we do forest thinning projects to reduce wildfire risk, reducing flood risk through sedimentation projects, riparian restoration projects, anything that you can think of that would improve watershed and forest health. we're working on it in a variety of different ways across the U.S. Forest Service lands. In addition to our field programs, next slide. Oh, thank you. We also have a United States effort to replant trees where there have been large-scale impacts through wildfire, insect infestation, floods, et cetera. These are places where trees can't regenerate on their own, and we work in partnership with the Forest Service and corporate donors to invest in those places and those trees to get those back on the ground. So that is a national program. And this is a $50 million for our forest campaign. And so in 2021, the National Forest Foundation funded over 7 million trees planted across the National Forest System. And so we have a little ways to go, and we're working on that madly right now. The next national program, and this gets back to the federal appropriation that we receive from the Forest Service, it's about a $3 million federal appropriation, and most of that goes back into what we call our matching awards program grants. And so these are competitive grants that are offered twice a year to other nonprofit organizations that require a one-to-one non-federal match, which is part of the agreement we have with the Forest Service to receive this federal allocation. And in doing this program, we can get more work done on the ground, more acres, more youth engaged, and again, with that one-to-one match, we're leveraging those federal funds. Next slide. So I just want to emphasize that the National Forest Foundation, whether it's here locally or across the United States, really takes an all-in approach. And the way that we work is in a myriad of ways. So we can be a facilitator to a local collaborative. We're often hired to do that. We are a project implementer, overseeing a large scope of work, working with other nonprofits or contractors. And we are obviously a fundraiser, which brings me here to you guys today. Next slide. So I just wanted to talk a little bit very quickly about sort of a life cycle of a project, because this relates to the Highline Trail proposal that we're talking about today. So we work with the forest staff at multiple levels to identify those priorities, where those needs really are, and where there's capacity needs or resource needs that the National Forest Foundation can add specific value to. So where can we bring more funds, leverage non-federal funding? Where can we come in and help oversee a project where the Forest Service might not have capacity? We always look for shovel-ready projects, so like you guys interested in projects that have been NEPA cleared, culturally cleared, wildlife cleared, and then we can go right on the ground and invest funds right away. So that's what we're looking for. We're at a stage now with the portion of work on the Highline Trail where we're looking for those funds to help implement the entire scope of work. Like many projects, the Highline Trail is scalable, so we can do as much as we have the funding to do. And that's why the RTP funds are so important. So we think we can use those funds to really leverage an entire scope of work, and that's exciting for us today. So we look for, obviously federal funds, forest funds, private funds, state funds, you name it. We're out there trying to find a way to pool all those resources together. And then we implement that project as we would with the Highline Trail. We work with other nonprofits, collaborative partner groups, contractors to figure out the best way to use the funds on the ground. We work to get an agreement in place with the Forest Service that gives us the authority to manage that work. Again, adding value and capacity to the Forest Service, and then we report on the metrics from the work after it's done. Next slide. So just a frame of reference for what we're doing here in Arizona. We operate in northern Arizona on 5 national forests under an umbrella program called the Northern Arizona Forest Fund. This is a watershed investment program where we pool resources to invest across those national forests in projects that improve watershed forest health conditions and allow for enhancement of those outdoor experiences. So the Highline Trail, as you see, is one of many projects that we're working on, which both enhances outdoor experience and reduces sediment into the Salt River and Verde River watersheds, which of course improves water supply for us here and overall function and wildlife habitat opportunities. So we work on community benefit projects, watershed, water restoration projects, and fire risk reduction and forest thinning projects. These are just a few of our partners. We have other state partners with Game and Fish, the Department of Environmental Quality, the Water Protection Funds, and excited to work with state parks as well, hopefully. So why partner with the National Forest Foundation? Again, we are working to add value to places where the Forest Service doesn't have capacity, and that's the big one. We also leverage funds. We work to generate at least $4 in conservation value for every federal dollar invested. We are often led by community interests, so we're listening to what the local communities want to do, and we work to help support those interests. And we know that honestly, it takes a village to get these kinds of projects done. No one entity can do it alone. And so we're here to convene people, to convene organizations, and to work to figure out how to do more on the ground. And so with that, I would take any questions about who we are and what we do. And I appreciate the opportunity to tell you a little bit about the National Forest Foundation.
Thank you, Ms. Davidson. Any questions from the board?
Yes, please. Traditionally, Region 3 has been one of the most underfunded regions within the entire Forest Service. Can you tell me what that looks like with relationship to the efforts that you have to aggregate different funding sources? Are we still in a position where the private sector is filling the gap because there isn't sufficient support in this region from Capitol Hill or the administration?
It's a really good question, and I'm going to admit that I don't know all of the various sources of funding that Region 3 receives from, the various appropriations that the Forest Service gets. I do know that when we bring private or non-federal dollars to the table, our chances of getting additional Forest Service funds to leverage those federal or those non-federal funds increases. So where we can bring non-federal funds to the table to help support priority projects, the Forest Service is enabled to bring more money for those projects. So as I've worked in this region for the last 5 years, I've seen more federal dollars coming to the table for a few reasons, I believe. One, we're bringing more dollars to the project work that we've talked about today, and that leverages the efforts, but also because we're building more and more trust with the Forest Service in the region as I've been growing capacity here in the area. So I can't speak directly to like the total federal budgets. I could look that up and let you know. I don't know all of the different places that they're getting those funds from. I can tell you from my experience that yes, we're getting more federal funding on the ground, but it does take non-federal funds to help match in many of those places.
So, Mr. Chairman. Yes. So in other words, the dynamic that this state and New Mexico have experienced over the years has not changed, that we continue to be an underfunded region within the Forest Service, and the only way that is changing is because you're getting private dollars or foundation dollars to be able to entice a higher appropriation level from the U.S. Forest Service. That being said, are all of your projects generated, as far as initiated, let's say, out of the Forest Service in Washington, D.C., or are they really reflective of the needs of this region in Arizona?
Everything I do is reflective of local, community, and collaborative efforts here on the ground. So everything I do is based on what I hear from the local forests and maybe
from the local
forests.
But that's where I was heading. So you're basically serving as an adjunct funding source for the local forests to be able to do their job because of a lack of funding from Washington. The reason I brought this up at the last board meeting is I'm very concerned about what happens if we don't have the resources in Arizona. Clearly, the watershed is a huge issue for SRP. I mean, there are some very vital portions of this that are critical to making sure that the United States government manages those assets in a way that contributes to everything we're trying to do in Arizona, rather than causes an imbalance.
Yep.
And that imbalance has been very difficult for this state to manage. And so I'm trying to understand, are we just making sure, we being Arizona, that we can get the things that need to be done to properly manage the forest, because we're putting Arizona dollars on the table essentially to move federal dollars to this region. And again, with all due respect, I understand what you're doing, but my experience with this goes back decades, because Region 3 has generally been the stepchild of the Forest Service. And if it weren't for the state of Arizona putting work and all the different aspects, putting work and money on the table, we wouldn't be getting things done. So I just want to make sure that whatever investment we have, that we at least have an equal partner in Washington.
Oh, so here's what I hear what you're saying, Member Atkins. My understanding is that this region, I can't say that this region is underfunded versus other regions. I don't know those numbers off the top of my head. What I can say is we in this region are seeing more federal investments coming in now than we have ever seen in the past.
But that's because you've been putting resources on the table for them to match.
Yes.
So it doesn't really give them a lot of wiggle room. If the state and its nonprofits and its communities are willing to put that money on the table, that's wonderful, because we're bringing maybe a higher percentage of money in. I'm just concerned about at what point, when, say, we have an economic problem in the state of Arizona, and you don't have a lot of nonprofits who have the cash to be able to fund what you're doing, is that responsibility not going to be funded by the federal government with regard to assets that are in Arizona? And I don't mean to put you on the spot. It's just historically that's been the case.
If I can, my understanding is that at a Washington level, and this moves into the different regions, there's a number of new and additional funds that the Forest Service is now getting, which allows a lot more money to come to different regions. So there's the infrastructure funding, there's the Great American Outdoors funding, there's others. And those funding sources are allowing the Forest Service to meet many of those on-the-ground needs. But as you know, there's many, many things to do. And so what we're looking at doing now is not only leveraging those new funding sources to get even more work done through non-federal funds, but to look where those specific needs are not being met already. And in addition to the state dollars that are coming in to support the work that we're doing on the ground, we also have many corporate partners, we have other foundation partners, other municipal partners who are also helping invest along with the Forest Service money to do more. So, whether we move into a place in the future where the state's putting more in than the feds, I'm not sure. Right now, we're in a really good position where the federal government is putting quite a bit of money in, but they need more partners to help with the investments on the ground and to get some of those projects done.
So one more question, Mr. Chairman, because I have several of them, but the last one will be, is your spending consistent with the forest plans that are developed with public input and run through? So you're not funding anything that's outside the scope of those forest plans?
Oh, no. Everything we do has been run through the federal system of NEPA approvals. It goes through, that whole public comment period. We don't do anything that's outside of a Forest Service plan of operation or a NEPA process.
All right, thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, great points. Any other conversation, members? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Mr.
Oh, one
Mr.
second.
Vice Chair, this is Dale. I just would like to, obviously I'm not there in person, and I share a lot of Commissioner Atkins' views on this. This was a real gap in my knowledge regarding the National Forest Foundation. So Director Davidson, I truly appreciate you coming and talking more about this organization. That's my fault, not yours, that I wasn't familiar with it. But between your presentation today and Commissioner Atkins' questions regarding the relationship of private versus the public funding, I think it would be good for us in terms of volunteer citizens representing the Arizona State Parks Board to be able to know this story well enough that we can help support more movement on the federal side, at the Washington Capitol Hill side, with your foundation. I don't know what your staffing is like. I don't know your ability to manage big projects of this nature, but it sounds like a huge undertaking. And anything we can do as a state and a board to support this strategy in a more dynamic way, particularly when these dollars begin drying up here in the near future. Please stay in contact with Mickey and Bob and the others, and what we as the State Parks Board, maybe to be able to become a member of your board of directors, whatever it is that we need to do to help advance what Commissioner Atkins said. I think this is critical to our relationship with the National Forest Service.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair Larson. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dale. And with that, we'll move to number 8, discussion and consideration of action to approve, modify, or deny funding for the submitted 2022 Recreational Trails Program, RTP, non-motorized grants and trails applications. And if everybody has never met Mickey Rogers, Chief of Grants and Trails, the podium is his.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. The Recreational Trails Program provides grant funding for constructing and maintaining non-motorized trail and trailhead facilities. Each fiscal year, a minimum of 30% of appropriated recreational trails fund must be used for non-motorized projects. The projects that we're going to discuss today is the National Forest Foundation is looking for funding to perform much-needed trail maintenance on 8 miles of trail and construct 10 miles of new trail reroute to realign eroding trails onto sustainable grades. The Highline Trail, located in northeast Arizona, is a heavily used trail on the Tonto National Forest. These trails are available to hikers, equestrian, and biking. All of the work will be done by a professional trail crew, and the trail work will be natural service and basically 18 to 24 inches in width. Work would also include decommissioning former trails built to allow native grasses and plants to grow on the edges to prevent erosion, and erosion control structures to build on steep sections for a sustainable trail. Due to the steep terrain and wilderness, the focus of this grant funding is on the renovation and building of new trails. The certification letter for the Tonto National Forest states that they are matching this with $150,000 of their Great American Outdoor Act funding, basically doubling the amount of work that can be completed. As with all of our grant, if a nonprofit does work, does trail construction or trail maintenance on a third party's property, which in this case is the Tonto National Forest, the Tonto is responsible for continued maintenance of this trail section. For the Highline Trail section, their funding is limited, the Tontos, for maintenance for the entire forest, and they rely heavily on volunteers who routinely adopt sections of the trail or volunteer days to do maintenance on this trail. All of the clearances in place, the project's shovel-ready. Staff, Ascot, and ARC recommend to fully fund this project, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mickey. Any questions from the board? So to clarify, Mick, that this is adding 10 miles of trail?
It's 10 miles of reroute. There's an existing trail, they have to reroute on steep sections. So it's technically, by the definition of our RTP program, new trails, but it's just rerouting existing trails.
So sort of making them more sustainable and more efficient?
Correct.
So that there's less maintenance necessary and reduced risk?
Correct.
In doing that? Okay. Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Vice Chair, I move that the Arizona State Parks Board approve funding for the 2022 non-motorized grant application as follows. The National Forest Foundation Highline Trail Improvement Project in the amount of $149,982.
Thank you. Member Johnson, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's do a roll call vote, please.
John Sefton,
Aye.
Dale Larson,
Aye.
Lisa Atkins,
I with continued concerns, to be perfectly honest with you, but I'll vote aye based on the presentation today.
Debbie Johnson,
Aye.
Terry Palmberg,
Aye.
Mr. Vice Chair, the motion passed.
Thank you very much. Item number 9, discussion and consideration of action to approve, modify, or deny funding and amendment to the budget for the following grant applications. Mickey?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. In fiscal year 2020, the Arizona State Parks Board awarded the City of Show Low $600,000 to develop a new inclusive playground and splash pad. The award to the City of Show Low was delayed several months with the National Park Service due to their backlog of project. This delay caused a significant increase in construction costs for this project once bids were finalized. The City of Show Low is requesting additional $153,954 in additional funding and will match these with their funds for this project. To date, the parking lot expansion will be completed mid-June, splash pad installation in July, and the playground will not be delivered until later due to lead times needed for manufacturing and staffing shortages. Staff and ARC recommend to fully fund this project, and I'd be happy to answer questions you have.
Thank you. And we do have Lisa Robertson on the line from Show Low as well.
Correct.
Any questions from the board? Okay.
Mr. Vice Chair, I move that the Arizona State Parks Board approve the amendment to the budget for the City of Show Low Frontier Park Inclusive Playground and Splash Pad Project and increase the award amount from $600,000 to $753,954.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Roll call vote, please.
John Sefton,
Aye.
Dale Larson,
Aye.
Lisa Atkins.
Aye.
Debbie Johnson.
Aye.
Terry Palmberg.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. Item number 10, report on FY 2022 awarded Heritage State Lake Improvement Fund, American Rescue Plan Act Fund, motorized, non-motorized trail maintenance and safety, environmental education, and land and water conservation fund reports. Mick.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. It's been a busy year, so there's been a lot of projects that have been approved, more than, since I've been here, more than I've seen. OHV program, for the projects, there were 4 side-by-sides purchased for law enforcement, 2 trailhead projects, 2 educational projects, 1 trailhead master plan project, 2 funding for travel management planning, 2 emergency mitigation projects, and 1 collaborative regional project addressing OHV issues in the Sedona area. For the State Lake Improvement Fund, there was 1 boat launch improvement project, water safety center improvement, new wind warning system at Lake Pleasant, 14 boats and motors with trailers were awarded, and 4 jet skis. For the recreational trails program, there were 31 miles of new trail that will be constructed with this money, 44.9 miles of trail that will be maintained. There'll be 2 new trailheads and 1 education project. For the Land and Water Conservation Fund, 6 project cost amendments due to delays in getting the project approved were awarded, and we anticipate 2 more to come, 1 from Camp Verde and 1 from Apache Junction. 3 park improvement projects, 1 new multi-purpose ball field project, and 1 splash pad. Historic preservation, 4 historic build and renovation projects, 2 historic outdoor recreation and build and renovation projects, and there were a total of 30 applications that were submitted, so there's a great need to continue this funding on the historic preservation side. I'm sure Catherine can attest to that. The local regional state park heritage fund, 3 new projects including 2 splash pads and 1 park expansion, 3 existing park renovations, and all of these funds were obligated in less than 4 months. There were also 25 projects that were started that were never completed. So again, there's a big need for this funding also. For the environmental education program, 2 leave no trace projects, 1 tread lightly project, 3 bike ambassador projects, 3 projects related to school-aged children getting outside, 1 outfitting a nonprofit providing safety and education to trail users, and 1 open space coordinator. For the Heritage Fund non-motorized program, 19 miles of new trail will be constructed, 2.2 miles of trail will be maintained. There's 1 project installing 43 gate crossing. There's 1 project that's assessing a 40-mile trail system that was heavily damaged by the fire down in the Coronado National Forest. American Rescue Plan Act, there were 5 park improvement projects. There was 2 historic preservation projects. There were 2 trail projects, and there are still 7 potential projects at the governor's office waiting for eligibility that we hope to bring to the board in September. The HVAC program, which was brand new to us, we had 4 projects that have been approved to date. So in total, there were 86 projects awarded, 24 were first-time applicants. Staff moved 1,000 projects from our old online system to propose new online system called eCivis, and after major glitches, had to move all 1,000 back to the old system, which is what we're using now. We had 33 advisory committee and board meetings. We presented at 2 statewide conferences. We held 9 workshops with over 405 people attending. And with this funding, there were 18 positions that were funded with the money that we had, and 132 weeks of trail crews were funded with this program also. And I just want to also thank SHPO. They're short-staffed, so they reviewed 21 projects that they normally wouldn't do, and they did those in 23.5 days. So that was to get these projects moving. So that was great to have that. So the total funding that we had is up on the board. 23 million was awarded, match of 22 million, with the total impact over $45 million. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Yeah.
Excellent, yeah.
Congratulations.
Definitely worthy of recognition and the hard work that goes on from the entire team. With that, any comments from the board? Dale?
Mr. Vice Chair, I sound like a broken record from previous meetings, but words can't express how proud and honored I think we are to have Mickey, Matt, the whole staff, SHPO, all of your people that are working in support of getting out of the door $23 million of needed projects. I can't imagine another state having the efficiencies and the professionalism and the ability to be able to weather all of those committee meetings, all those applications, all of those stakeholder meetings, the way that you, Bob, and Nikki, your entire staff has done. Arizona is truly, truly gifted to be able to have such an excellent staff, and all I can say is that we are the beneficiary of your professionalism. So thank you very much, Mickey, and everyone involved with this incredible grant process. You deserve more than applause. You deserve just great recognition and acknowledgement for a job well done.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. And I might just add to your statement there, too, about the other volunteer groups, the OFHAG, the AORC, and the other areas, too, just coordinating the exercise in general and the awareness and the expertise and the contribution and commitment that comes from all of our volunteers, through the whole process. It is a very public process in awarding these funds. So, and obviously we serve an important part of that role. So thank you, board members, as well as thank you all staff. And we'll move on to item number 11, discussion and consideration of action regarding the draft application form for designation of dude ranches for inclusion in Arizona Dude Ranch Heritage Trail Program. Presenter Catherine Letter, our State Historic Preservation Officer.
Thank you, Vice
Thank
Chair
you,
Sefton,
Catherine.
members of the committee. It's my pleasure today to present our newest program in Arizona State Parks and Trails, the Arizona Dude Ranch Heritage Trail. This past legislative session, HB 2398, sponsored by Representative Dunn, was signed into statute by Governor Ducey on April 29th, 2022. This bill amends Arizona Revised Statute Title 41, Chapter 4.2, Article 1, Historic Preservation. And so it lands squarely in the court of the Arizona State Parks Board and the State Historic Preservation Office. We worked collaboratively with, next slide, please. We worked collaboratively with the Arizona Dude Ranch Association in the weeks following passage of the bill into statute and developed a proposed workflow for how this program would work, and you should see that in your committee packet. The workflow establishes a program of application and review by the State Historic Preservation Office prior to forwarding applications on to the Arizona State Parks Board for approval as stipulated within statute. We also worked collaboratively with the Arizona Dude Ranch Association on an application form. The application form basically follows the criteria that is established in statute and also provides for some additional documentation to be submitted so that we have a record of the property. Significantly, the form does require owner consent for application. And this is the draft format. We worked with our marketing department to develop a mock-up of what a splash page or web page for this program would look like. That symbol over on the top is just a placeholder right now. We are waiting on the Dude Ranch Association to provide artwork for a seal for the program as a whole. The webpage will, again, provide information about the program. It will provide a portal for interested applicants to apply directly to the State Historic Preservation Office. It will also, once we have some listings, it will have an interactive map that shows the location of the ranches that are part of the trail program. And it will provide a link where you can directly access the property's website as well. Arizona Department of Tourism, as I understand, has some initiatives related to Dude Ranch, Heritage Dude Ranch, excuse me, not just the Heritage Dude Ranch Trail, but Dude Ranch tourism in general. We will also provide links to their website and any programs and materials that they have produced in support of Dude Ranches. Next. Today, I'm just briefly presenting to you a mock-up of what a official plaque would look like for this program. We are not asking you to vote on final plaque design today, but the Arizona Dude Ranch Association has very generously done the research for us on what the cost of a bronze plaque would be. Our proposed cost right now is $420. However, we need to make sure that we are going through Arizona State procurement, so that number could change, and we will have more detailed information for you at your September meeting. As designed right now, the plaque will look very similar to this, as the state of Arizona, the Arizona State Park seal, and then when the seal for the program is developed, that seal will be on there as well. Language would read, the Arizona State Parks Board hereby designates the property and its establishment date as an Arizona Dude Ranch Heritage Trail destination in recognition of its role in Arizona's guest ranching history. And again, the way we have configured this is that we will provide this plaque to the approved applicant upon approval by the Parks Board. And there will be a fee for that, as also stipulated, that will be borne by the applicant, fee established in statute as well. All right, I think that is all I have for you today. If you have any questions, I am prepared to answer them.
Thank you, Catherine. Members of the board, any questions?
I just have one question, if I could, please. I just want to make certain, we've worked a lot with the Dude Ranch Association, and I want to make certain, because they are a membership organization, and not all the Dude Ranches are members of their organization. So I just want to make sure that any Dude Ranch in Arizona who qualifies will be able to get this designation regardless of their membership status in the association.
Yeah, any Dude Ranch that qualifies under the criteria provided in the statute.
Perfect, thank you very much. And we will also do reciprocal, we'll list any members of who become designated, we'll list them in our visitor guide and in our information as well.
Yes. Thank you, Member Johnson. I should add that we've also coordinated with Department of Tourism staff as well.
Yeah, absolutely, thank you.
Thank you. I may be going way out on a limb here, but recognizing the amount of work that's been done already in accommodating this bill and this passage, do we foresee any funding coming to support staff associated with this expansion of responsibilities?
No.
No.
Vice Chair Sefton, if I may, members of the committee. From what we can glean from our preliminary analysis, there will be approximately 25 to 30 properties that will meet this criteria, and we anticipate that we will be able to get the bulk of them in one fell swoop.
Okay.
And then we will obviously maintain the register for those that follow, but we don't anticipate that this will be a heavy burden to staff.
Great. And I'll poke a little bit of fun at your slide that's up right now, and I hope that we can find an Arizona bronze company. Just
It'd be copper.
Ditto.
it'd be copper.
That's good.
Whatever company we provide will have to be on
Approved by
Arizona
the state.
State approved by
Yes,
procurement.
absolutely.
I took the course.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Catherine. All right, so we will move on to item number 12, an update on agency financial
vote.
performance for FY 2020. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you need to take a vote on the actual process.
Well,
I
thank
believe
you
the
for
motion.
Yeah, I believe
holding
the
up
vote
on
is for the
that.
form.
Do we have a motion slide for this one?
No.
What is my motion? Just approving the cost of the plaque?
We settled on the motion, right, Kelly? Oh, the motion was to approve the language, or excuse me, approve the draft application form,
right.
yes.
So, Vice Chair Sefton, I would like to make a motion that we approve the draft application form as provided to the board.
Great, and I'll second that one. And for members in favor, vote aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
If it's not in the slide, I don't read it.
That's right. My apologies.
Have to make up my motion.
Very good.
I missed that one.
All right, so item number 12, update on agency financial performance for FY 2022. Presenter Kevin Brock, Assistant Director, CFO, Arizona State Parks and Trails. Kevin.
Mr. Vice Chair, we were hoping to have an update for you on our budget for the fiscal year 23, but as you know, that we are not in that position yet, and many of you sitting at this table today are in the same hopeful position that we were as well. We do want to give you an update on the financial performance of our agency. We have information here that is through the end of April. We were just short of finalizing the May close numbers before we printed this, but we continue to have favorable trends. So we wanted to give you a status on the health of each of our three key funds that our agency operates off of. First of all is the State Park Revenue Fund. In the upper left-hand corner, you can see that our current cash balance is about $37.2 million. We have a stacked bar graph here that will show you that this consists of about $3.7 million of commitments for capital projects from prior fiscal years. Also, we have an orange slice in there that shows you if we stopped receiving funds for the rest of the year, that's the prorated portion of our operating budget that would come out of that. Our total operating expenditures for an average year are about 17 million, so you can see that our 37 million is a good buffer of almost 2 years of operating funds. I will note that the current executive budget being reviewed by the legislature includes a proposed appropriation of about $23 million for capital projects that would come out of the SPURF fund. So this buffer that's been building up over the years would be well used, and we're hopeful that that would happen. We continue in our parks to generate about $5 to $6 million a year in excess of what we spend. So our budget has been kept well in check. Upper right-hand corner, this shows the same type of outlay for our State Lake Improvement Fund. And you can see that our total cash balance there is $13.7 million. Our annual operating expenditures out of SLIF are about $7 million a year. We, in addition to the other colors, we have included a light blue, I'm not sure, it is light blue up there, $4.9 million. That represents the SLIF grant money that was added this past year. To date, we have committed about $4.3 million of that $4.9 million that was added to the SLIF funds for granting. Again, favorable to the budget are our forecast of $9.7 million by about $3.9 million. The majority of that favorable cash fund is simply due to the prior year capital projects that have not been completely expended at this time of about $2.4 million. Lastly, on the bottom left-hand corner is our OHV fund. Currently has a balance of $13.5 million. There's a significant amount, $5.4 million of that are committed for grants that have been issued in the prior year, and about $2.3 million of grants that have been committed for the current year. Our operating expenditures out of the off-highway vehicle fund are only $300,000 to $400,000 a year. So that primarily is to facilitate the grants that are generated each year. This, the next chart just gives you a view of our revenue trends from the State Park Revenue Fund. Through April, our total revenue was $19.7 million versus the prior year of $18.1 million, up $1.6 million or almost 10%. Even through May just closed again since we generated these charts, and we continue to be above the prior year on a year-to-date basis of about $800,000 or 4%. I have circled there, actually it didn't quite come out the way it looks like on the PowerPoint, but I was highlighting in the last 2 months in particular. You can see leading up to the months of March and April that we continue for most months to outpace the prior years. And we've done that for several years, even through the COVID period. In these years, in these current months now, in March and April, we're starting to see a decline in revenue, which we had anticipated. The month of March is when we put a hold on future reservations past the Labor Day weekend to help facilitate the implementation of our new reservation system, which has a contractual go live date of August 1st. We had forecasted that through the month of June, through this fiscal year, that we would see a decline of about $1.5 million, close to $2 million. And we are right on pace with that, and we are anticipating that we will recapture that revenue once the new system goes on live and our customers come back and are able to make future reservations again. Anybody who stayed at our parks know that they, during the peak seasons, they most all are booked in full 6 months in advance. So it's not unusual at all that we would see this dip in revenue right now. The next chart. Finally, for our state park revenue and for SLIF, we have put in here some additional detail on both the revenues and the expenditures. The run rate chart for revenues on the upper left-hand corner shows you that our plan for revenues through the month of April was $18.9 million. We're at $19.7 million. We're $800,000 in advance on a year-to-date basis, or 4%. On the upper right-hand column, you can see the run rate for our expenditures. We had a plan for $14.9 million. We're at $14.3 million. So we're favorable by just about $600,000, or 4% through the month of April. The bottom portion of that chart just gives you a breakout by the different categories of expenditures that we're incurring. You can see by far the majority of the expenditures are around our staffing for salary and benefits, and then our operating expenditures, which for our parks really generally is mostly utilities, water, waste removal, and so forth. And we are favorable to date for the SPUR fund. For SLIF, upper left-hand corner, you can see the run rate for our revenues. We had a plan of $7.1 million. We're at $7.3 million. So we are favorable there by about 3%. On the upper right-hand quadrant, you can see our expenditure run rates. We're actually a little bit over budget right now. Plan of $5.8 million. We're at $6 million. We will be on target for both SPURF and SLIF as we close the fiscal year here in just a couple weeks. As we continue making our final accounting adjustments in the end-of-year billing that comes in. And then again on the bottom, you can simply see the breakout of the various expenditure categories. Our salary and benefits, again, being the majority of the expenditures there. Any questions that you may have about the current year financial performance?
Thank you, Kevin. It's impressive, for sure. Any questions from the board members?
Thank you. I am happy to yield the Mickey Rogers Memorial Podium.
Well done. All right, we'll move on to item number 13, update on the State Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, affectionately known as the SCORP. Presenter, Dr. Don Collins.
Vice Chair Sefton, members of the board, thank you for having me here today. My name is Don Collins. I am a project manager and lead on the SCORP project. And with that, I also want to, as I do every time, I would like to acknowledge the fact that all statewide recreation planning, but this in particular, takes a village. So part of that village is here today. I'd like to introduce Deb Pryor, Partners in Brainstorms. Arizona State University has been involved in this effort as well. The Watts College of Public Service and Community Solutions, led by Dr. Gyan Yapani. So without their work, and of course, Mickey and his hardworking team also have been contributing to the SCORP on top of the $23 million. So thanks to all of them for that. So, thank you, Kelly. So just to let you know, we are very close. We're so close to like moving this into a public comment period. We're very excited about that. But first, we just wanted to remind you all of the different sources of input that have gone into deciding what those priorities for the state of Arizona will be for the next 5 years. So Arizona State University conducted stakeholder sessions with 3 different virtual stakeholder sessions with 77 participants. They conducted 2 follow-up focus groups with traditionally underrepresented populations, and also conducted some small surveys also with some other groups, and also conducted working group sessions. And these working group members helped to take all of that information and kind of aggregate it into something very manageable. So that final report was produced, and that was one input into the objectives and goals that we're going to talk about in a moment. Other inputs into those goals and objectives was the public. So we got more than 6,500 completed surveys. I know, it's very exciting. We're very excited. So we're going to start referring to the random sample of selected Arizona households as the public survey in our language and in our. So we got over 5,000 completed surveys from Arizona households. What that allows us to do is to make generalizations to the Arizona population as a whole, so we can say something about participation rates and kind of priorities from that perspective. But we also opened up the survey to invested members of the public. So this was a link off of our website. I distributed that link through you and your networks, through all other advisory committee members and partners across the state. So between all of those and our 112 recreation providers who responded to a recreation provider survey, there's your 6,500. We also provided some quick questions on our website. For the first time, we had a SCORP webpage. We've been letting people know where we are in the process on that webpage. We also included some quick questions so that people who were not inclined to take the entire survey might be able to go in and give us pieces of information. So we really tried to beef up our public participation this year. And we also provided presentations to the following organizations: Network for Arizona Trails. We have talked with them several times. We've, of course, come to the board and all of our advisory committees, ASCOT, OFHAG, AORC, and the Arizona State Parks Board. We also presented to the at a 4 Southern Tribes meeting and at the APRA conference, just to name a few. And also, Brittany helped us do some significant tribal outreach prior to the SCORP beginning, and also kind of some continued communication throughout the process. So, with all of that, I think that if you think about the conversations that we've been having in this room today, we have hit on every one of these major priority areas, so which reinforces to me that we've got it right. So based on all of that input, these are kind of the 4 priority areas that are guiding our 2023 SCORP. So you can go on to the next one, Kelly. So just to give you a preview of what you will see when you receive the draft document during the public comment period, here's where we are doing things just a touch differently this year. Whereas in the past we have been providing very specific actions to go along with some of the priorities, this time we've kind of up-leveled a bit, and we'll be continuing to have conversations with our partners to see what they are doing that is related to these goals and objectives or planning to do, and having them have a voice in what those actions will be. So here is priority 1, conservation and environmental stewardship. You can see that our goal is to, forgive me, I know that reading the slides is never good, but I feel like the goal is a significant enough thing that we can go ahead. So for conservation and environmental stewardship, our goal is to engage in responsible stewardship of Arizona's unique and finite natural and cultural resources, open spaces, parks, lakes, and rivers, while continuing to address environmental factors and use that influence the balance between conservation and recreation. And what I would like to draw your attention to in this goal is the balance between conservation and recreation. So one thing that we discussed a lot as we were coming up with this language was that because that balance is constantly shifting, this keeps this a very dynamic document as we respond to all of those different factors that influence that balance. So associated with each of these objectives will be strategies in the draft document, and I look forward to your input on those. Next slide, please, Kelly. Okay, so our second Priority area is sustainable outdoor recreation. And we had some questions about the sustainability of one of the projects that you saw before you. Clearly, sustainable outdoor recreation has an eye on the future, and looks to ensure that the practices that we're engaging in and the facilities that we create are created through an integrated and collaborative process, and we're able to maintain them over time. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead, yep. Okay, so the next goal, or the next, I'm sorry, priority area, connection, community, and economic vitality. So here we are talking about connecting people to each other, connecting people to the land in their communities in a way that increases both community health and economic vitality. We are talking about connecting the groups that people belong to the land in ways that increase community health. Broadly speaking, go ahead. And then our fourth priority area is pathways to health and wellness. So we are talking here about, I think the COVID pandemic highlighted for everybody the fact that having access to outdoor resources is important for both mental and physical health. So this is an acknowledgement of that, and also looks to make sure that that access is equal, and that everyone can access high quality recreation opportunities. All right, so in a nutshell, those are the priority areas. We've shared with you some objectives. When you go to look at the SCORP document, you will also see some strategies. With those objectives, we will be continuing to have a conversation past the point when the SCORP is approved to find out how we are going to work together to implement these goals, objectives, strategies. I'm looking forward to those. And what are our next steps? So as some of you may remember, our funding was delayed a bit, so the start of this project was delayed. So we revised our FY22 timeline to reflect that, and we've now revised our FY23 timeline to reflect that while trying to stay on the same schedule of approval and have it approved by January 1st, 2023, as required. So you will be seeing a draft SCORP available to the public on August 1st. That will be available for 30 days. So I'm hoping that all of you will take the opportunity to review that document and give us your feedback at that time, you and your organizations. We will also be consulting with tribes during that time. So Brittany is helping me to notify tribes that opportunity will be coming available to them starting August 1st, and we will be hearing, hopefully, we'll be hearing from many tribes during that time as well. And if you have any, I'm sorry, let me follow up by saying we expect to bring a final draft of the document to you in October. So we will have the draft out for public comment for 1 month in August. That will give us a month to integrate all of the public comment, which we're hoping there will be lots of, into the document. And then we'll provide you with a final approval in October. And after you approve, it will go to the governor's office for approval that there has been ample public participation opportunities. And then it will go to the National Park Service for their final approval. And then it will become our official document. And will become the open project selection process, which is included in this document, will become the guiding document to distribute land and water conservation funds, heritage funds, state lake improvement funds. And with that, I would love to take any questions that you have about this project.
Thank you, Don. Members of the board, any questions? I was going to mention too that there's been conversation about the scoring, and we recognize that in today's agenda, even where some of the scores were extremely low in comparison to others, and there's been probably a little bit of confusion around why they end up in that from a presentation standpoint. But out of the SCORP, we'll actually have the criteria further refined, and it's a chance for us to really look at and address that type of scoring and the way that it presents itself when we start moving those grants through the public process.
Correct.
Very good.
Yes.
Okay. Hearing no other comments, thank you so much, Don.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Item number 14, discussion and consideration of action regarding a proposed cooperation agreement with the Arizona State Parks Foundation. Presenter Bradley Burns, member of the Arizona State Parks Foundation. Brad, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me today. As the Vice Chair just mentioned, I'm Bradley Burns, I'm not actually a member of the State Parks Foundation. I'm an attorney that represents them pro bono. So I just wanted to clarify that. I am representing the foundation today, and I'm here to just give you a little bit of a history of what we're trying to do here, and then answer any questions that you do have. So this story starts in 2007 with the original memorandum of understanding between the State Parks Board, y'all, and the foundation. And the MOU, it was one of those things where it's not how we would do it today, but it set up a certain relationship with certain obligations back and forth between the foundation and the board. And I can't tell you what the people were thinking when they wrote it, but what appears to be envisioned by it is that the foundation would be a conduit for certain large projects and grants. And there would be a reason that you would do that through a 501c3 nonprofit rather than the state. Certain tax advantages. Sometimes a donor wants to have a little bit more control. There's like a reason you would do it. But the MOU, again, is not how we do it today, but it had a 10-year sunset on it. And it's like a 99-year lease. You go, okay, we'll just set this thing out forever, and then somebody else will have to deal with it at the end. We are that somebody else. So now we are on the back end of the 2007 MOU. It was extended a couple times to try to cause a wrap-up, but then COVID happened and we've just kind of been in the wind. So the original MOU is what we're trying to sunset. It had these entanglements, obligations, and a theory of how these two entities were going to operate that is just not how they actually operate. And so what we were trying to do, although the new agreement that we're proposing is called a cooperation agreement, we can call it whatever you'd like, it actually just sunsets the MOU and says, this is the foundation, this is the board, we're going to work together when we feel like it, with the understanding that the foundation's 501c3 purpose is to support the Arizona State Parks system, right? So instead of having the enmeshment agreed by contract, it is on a case-by-case basis. Like, for example, if there were a conduit, let's say a large public utility wanted to make a donation, to build some trail somewhere, then the staff and the agency would work with the foundation and that would be done. But it's done on a case-by-case basis without kind of forcing it. And so that is the goal of what we call the cooperation agreement. I believe you all have seen it in your packet of materials. The cooperation agreement is one page. It's one page, and the operative section is there are no further obligations other than those discussed herein. The obligations discussed herein are basically we'll cooperate when we feel like it. And so the cooperation is extraordinarily limited. So it's taking an enmeshment that we're not following, and it's creating a little bit of separateness, but understanding the goals of the two entities. So that is the real purpose of the cooperation agreement. That's the story. I mean, that is what we're trying to do, is we're trying to sunset the old MOU. And I'm open to any questions about it.
Excellent. Thank you, Bradley. Is there any question or comments from the board members?
Yes,
So you're not-
Mr. Vice Chair, this is Dale. I know we've been in conversations, and Bob certainly with his staff has been in conversations, very patient conversations with the Arizona State Parks Foundation. So it's good to see this finally come to an outcome of this cooperation agreement. I'd like to thank Bradley and also to thank the foundation for their patience in working through this. I'm wondering, perhaps Bob, if someone on staff could kind of give an idea of what some of the historical activities have been in terms of the foundation's role in being a conduit for various funds that have benefited the State Parks Agency.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try. I think what Bradley's talking about is the foundation in support of the parks mission, essentially through various fundraising. They have donated significant amounts of money to Granite Mountain is one of the biggest recipients. Kartchner Caverns has received cash, for a check from the foundation to do various activities. So yeah, it's been a great relationship. I think it definitely with foundations and agencies and transfer new personnel coming in, they do things a little bit differently, and as well as the foundation members as well, and everybody wants to see something happen on the ground. But I think what Bradley mentioned is exactly how I read it, is we just agree to work together, and it gives the foundation an assurance that the board wants to work with them, and it gives the board assurance that the foundation wants to work together. So I think short and sweet and to the point is essentially what this cooperation agreement is. We can, I think the other MOU, I think what Bradley was saying, is way prescriptive. And in certain areas, a lot of things that probably shouldn't have been. And so I think, what the foundation can do, I think it's very similar to what Rebecca was presenting on, is they can do things we can't, and probably shouldn't do, and they can reach that other sector of corporate, of volunteer donations, things like that, that we necessarily can't or don't have the capacity to do. So yeah, I think the foundation's been a great partner for a lot of things that we've done on our parks, and I hope that continues. I hope they continues, but also it can go tenfold as far as the revenue that can come to the park. So.
Thank you, Mr. Director.
Yeah, and I just wanted to, thank you for doing that. I just wanted the board to know that in the kind of off-the-record conversations that have been going on here for the last few years, I'm very supportive of this action prior to if the board chooses to make a motion on it. But I think it just shows the maturity of a part of the foundation as well as staff to kind of find a happy common ground as we proceed and move this thing forward.
Thank you, Dale. Member Atkins?
And you may have said this and I just didn't catch it. Has the foundation board passed a resolution, considered a resolution? Are they waiting for us to do something?
As soon as this board approves this MOU, it can be executed. So the foundation has done all requisite steps to approve this as an offer. And then, so once it's approved by this board, signed by the executive director of this board, then our president would sign it. So we are only waiting on the board here.
And are we gonna vote on this today or just discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, we left you with the option, is you can approve it, you can send us back to the drawing board. If there's something in here that you'd like to see or not see, we would work with Bradley in the foundation, or you could just not take any action at all. So we just really wanted to leave this open.
Has it been reviewed by our attorneys? As far as level of commitment or?
This is Nancy Jaskolka, and yes, I've reviewed it, and it's my understanding that the board has comments from me for consideration as to prep for the board meeting today.
Okay. Very good. I will admit that I need further time to review personally myself on this. I know that we've got quite a history with respects to and an evolution of the organizations. And Mr. Burns, I want to express my appreciation for your pro bono work in facilitating something like this. It's never easy. And then making sure that we've got the T's crossed, the I's dotted, and that we understand that the delineation between the where, the what, and the how in the fundraising. So yeah, I think that it's definitely something that we're supportive of. I would like to actually just throw out the motion that we authorize staff to work with the State Parks Foundation to revise the agreement and present to the board at a future meeting.
Mr. Vice Chairman, before you proceed to a vote, could I comment on the motion?
Do I, as a matter of protocol?
This is Nancy Jaskolka. I mean, I don't think there's actually been a
second.
motion made. It's your call as the
Okay.
chair to entertain.
Since I do not have a second,
second,
I don't have a
so go
second,
ahead.
so yes, Mr. Burns, thank you. My
I'm
apologies.
sorry to interrupt your process. We do not mind coming back. I just want to make that clear.
Great.
So that's great. I wanted to add something which is, it's two things. One is, please keep in mind that the vision of this agreement is to have the right by this board and the agency, but not the obligation to do any particular thing. So it's creating a permanent, close together relationship, but not intertwined. And so it's something that should be durable and very conducive to both missions. So the obligations it creates are very limited, and that's the goal. And if there were any limitations this board, through its staff or attorneys, wanted to further limit obligations, we are wide open to that. So I know that's one of the concerns that the board expressed during the discussion, so I just wanted to keep that in mind. The second point I wanted to make is the foundation, it has a significant and important purpose in furthering the state parks system, in furtherance of this board's mission. And that is, the director mentioned, it can do some things that the board can't, okay? And I just want to put in everyone's minds what that is. One is it can just solicit donations from the public and have those be easily tax deductible, okay? So that's an important thing. Although we're talking of tens of thousands a year right now, we have no idea what that could be one day, and so its existence is important. But also, when you're a large corporate donor, some donations to the state are tax deductible. And I'm way speculating here, but this is how I would view it as a corporate attorney, okay? Some donations to the state are tax deductible, but there's an additional layer of analysis, which is you can't receive a substantial benefit in any way in exchange for your tax deductible donation. So if you're a large big box company that's asking for 65 things from a governmental subdivision at any given moment in this state, how do you demonstrate non-reciprocation? If they just give it to a 501c3, they're done. And so it has two levels of important purpose for the future. So I just wanted to put that on the record, even though there's not a ton going on at this exact moment, there is a high level of value for the foundation in whatever position the foundation and the board can agree. So I wanted to put that on the table. Those are the 2 points, and again, I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, thank you very much. And that, but very clearly, the foundation in its existence works and could accept such an opportunity even without the letter of agreement in place today, correct?
It can, but the relationship between the state, right now, are we under the MOU or has it sunset? Closing that relationship and having a new one would be helpful in that regard.
Agree,
Yeah.
agree. But yeah, again, if, thank you. I just would, I guess, stand if, with my motion to have staff continue to work with, if I would receive a second from such motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. By nature of this, let's do a roll call vote.
John Sefton.
Aye.
Dale Larson.
Aye.
Lisa Atkins.
Aye.
Debbie Johnson. Terry Palmberg.
Nay.
Mr. Vice Chair, the motion does not pass.
Okay, thank you. So we look forward to seeing this again on a future agenda item.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Brad.
All right, so future agenda items. Board members may identify items or issues they wish to be considered for inclusion of a future agenda. Board members, any future agenda items we'd like to see?
Other than that one.
Mr. Vice Chair, Dale here. Yeah, obviously the addition of the Park Foundation. Certainly we all continue to read the emergency nature of drought and the effect of the reduced supply of water in the state, and now the Colorado River has been announced that that's going down again. I'm wondering, Bob, if at some point in the near future there might be some kind of a open conversation discussion as far as in terms of water management, how that's affecting the state parks operation and your ability to operate effectively.
We could do that.
Yeah, very, very timely, very important topic. Thank you, Dale. Any others? All right, so we'll move on to item number F, the Executive Director's report on current events.
Mr. Chairman, I will keep it pretty brief, other than a lot of the things that we've been working on, obviously keeping a close eye on the budget process right now. They're working diligently to get the budget through and hopefully approved before June 30th, and that's a significant date because it's the start of our new fiscal year. Without a budget, that means shutdown, and I don't think anybody wants that. So we continue to, our folks, all of our staff continue to work on answering questions in the legislature right now, what our budget entails in the executive budget. So we're hopeful they'll get something passed that will beat that July 1st deadline. So It's been a lot of questions, and then we'll hear in a minute about the update on the audit. And so those have been really the significant items we've been working on over the past month. And to let you know, or remind you, I guess, is July, we do not have a board meeting, so we probably won't see you until August. So that's kind of my short and sweet update.
Great, thank you very much. And then current events, board members, do we have any, we have an opportunity to present any current events that board members would like to talk about? Board members? It's summertime.
Yeah.
All right, we'll do the call to the public. We'll recognize anybody from the public that wishes to speak. Seeing none. We have our future meeting dates, which recognize that we'll be skipping July and focusing on August 18th. Item number I, and item J is executive session. So we need to have a vote to be able to move into executive session.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so I move that we move it, I move that we move into executive session that is not open to the public, to receive a presentation from the representatives of the Arizona Auditor General's office related to the status of the Arizona State Parks Board and the ongoing sunset review. Do I have a second?
Second, sorry.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of adjourning to executive session?
Aye.
Say aye. Aye. Okay. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you all for leaving.
If you have the time, that would be great.